What you're about to see will change how you think about job interviews forever. A young woman with torn shoes just outsmarted 33 perfectly dressed candidates and landed the job of a lifetime. Picture this. It's 9 a.m. on a Monday morning at Sterling Financial Group, one of the biggest investment firms in the city. Sarah Mitchell is standing outside their gleaming headquarters, looking up at the 40-story glass tower that seems to touch the clouds. She's clutched a small white bag in her hands, wearing a crisp white blazer and a pencil skirt that she borrowed from her roommate. But there's something different about Sarah that's about to catch everyone's attention. As she walks through the revolving doors into the marble lobby, heads start to turn. Not because she's stunning, though she is. Not because of her confident stride, though that's impressive too. It's because of her feet. Sarah is walking completely barefoot across the polished marble floor of one of the most prestigious buildings in the financial district. The security guard does a double take. The receptionist behind the desk stops typing. Even the janitor pauses his work to stare. Here's this professional-looking woman, dressed to impress from the waist up, walking barefoot like she's at the beach instead of applying for a six-figure analyst position. But here's what nobody knew yet. Those torn shoes Sarah was carrying in that white bag? They held the key to everything that was about to unfold. Sarah had been preparing for this interview for months. She'd studied the company inside and out, memorized their recent deals, and could recite their mission statement backwards. This wasn't just any job for her. Growing up in a single-parent household where her mom worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on, Sarah knew that landing this position would change not just her life, but her entire family's future. The night before the interview, Sarah had laid out her outfit carefully. The blazer she'd found at a thrift store and had tailored to fit perfectly. The skirt her roommate had lent her. And her one pair of good shoes, black heels she'd bought with her last paycheck from her part-time job at a coffee shop. But life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. That morning, as Sarah was hurrying to catch the subway, disaster struck. The heel of her right shoe snapped clean off. Not just broke, but completely separated from the sole. She was standing on the platform with one good shoe and one that was basically unwearable. Most people would have panicked. Maybe called in sick. Rescheduled. Made up some excuse about a family emergency. But Sarah had waited too long for this opportunity. She'd already rescheduled once when her mom was in the hospital. She wasn't going to let a broken shoe stop her from potentially changing her entire life. So she made a decision that seemed crazy to everyone else but made perfect sense to her. She took off both shoes, put them in the small shopping bag she was carrying, and decided she'd rather show up barefoot and confident than limping and making excuses. As Sarah approaches the elevator, she overhears 2 men in expensive suits talking. "Did you see that girl with no shoes?" one whispers to the other. "What kind of person shows up to Sterling Financial barefoot? She's definitely not getting past the first round." The elevator ride to the 35th floor feels like it takes forever. Sarah can feel the stares of the other candidates who are also heading up for interviews. They're all dressed in their finest suits, carrying leather briefcases, looking like they stepped out of a business magazine. And then there's Sarah, barefoot and holding a grocery bag. When the elevator doors open, Sarah steps into a waiting area that looks like it belongs in a palace. Crystal chandeliers hang from the ceiling. The furniture is all mahogany and leather. Original paintings that probably cost more than Sarah's annual rent hang on the walls. And sitting in this elegant space are 33 other candidates, all perfectly groomed, all wearing shoes that cost more than Sarah's monthly grocery budget. The whispers start immediately. Sarah can hear them even though the candidates are trying to be discreet. Is she serious? How did she even get past security? This has to be some kind of joke. Some of them are trying not to laugh. Others aren't even bothering to hide their amusement. But here's what none of them noticed. While they were busy judging Sarah's appearance, she was doing something completely different. She was observing. She noticed that the receptionist looked stressed and overwhelmed. She saw that one of the candidates had spilled coffee on his shirt and was panicking. She observed that another candidate was so nervous she was visibly shaking. Instead of sitting in the corner feeling embarrassed, Sarah did something unexpected. She walked over to the nervous candidate and struck up a conversation. "First interview here too?" she asked with a warm smile. "I'm Sarah. Mind if I sit next to you? You look like you could use a friendly face." The girl, whose name was Jessica, was so surprised by Sarah's kindness that she immediately relaxed. They started talking, and within minutes, Jessica's nervousness had disappeared. Other candidates began to notice this barefoot woman who seemed more interested in helping others than worrying about what people thought of her. Then the interviews began. One by one, candidates were called into a conference room where a panel of executives, including the CEO, would grill them for 30 minutes. Sarah watched as each person went in looking confident and came out looking defeated. When it was Sarah's turn, she walked into that conference room with her head held high. The panel of 5 executives, including CEO Robert Sterling himself, all stared at her feet. There was an awkward silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Finally, CEO Sterling spoke. "Ms. Mitchell, I have to ask. Is there a reason you're not wearing shoes to this interview?" This was the moment Sarah had been preparing for since she'd made her decision that morning. She didn't make excuses. She didn't apologize. Instead, she reached into her white bag and pulled out her broken shoes. "Mr. Sterling, these shoes broke on my way here this morning," she said, placing them on the conference table. "I had a choice. I could either show up late while trying to find new shoes, call and reschedule again, or come as I am and focus on what really matters, which is showing you why I'm the right person for this job." She paused, looking each executive in the eye. "I've been preparing for this opportunity for months. I know you recently closed the Henderson deal worth $2.3 billion. I know you're expanding into emerging markets in Southeast Asia. I know you value innovation, integrity, and results. And I know that the person you're looking for isn't someone who gives up when faced with an unexpected challenge." The room was completely silent. Sarah continued, "These broken shoes represent something important. They represent the fact that I've worked 3 jobs while finishing my finance degree. They represent the fact that I don't come from money, but I'm hungry in a way that money can't buy. They represent the fact that when something goes wrong, I find a solution instead of making excuses." She leaned forward slightly. "Everyone in that waiting room has perfect shoes and perfect resumes. But I guarantee you that none of them want this job as much as I do. And none of them will work as hard as I will to prove that you made the right choice." CEO Sterling exchanged glances with the other executives. Then he asked Sarah a series of rapid-fire questions about market trends, financial analysis, and problem-solving scenarios. For the next 25 minutes, Sarah demonstrated that despite her unconventional appearance, her mind was sharp as a razor. She didn't just answer their questions, she provided insights they hadn't considered. When they asked about handling difficult clients, she told them about managing upset customers at the coffee shop where she worked. When they asked about working under pressure, she described juggling 3 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. But the moment that sealed the deal came when Sterling asked, "How do you handle judgment from others?" Sarah smiled. "Mr. Sterling, I've been handling judgment my whole life. Growing up poor teaches you that people will judge you for things that don't matter while missing the things that do. Today, 33 people judged me for not wearing shoes. But you know what none of them did? None of them asked the stressed receptionist if she needed help. None of them offered to help the candidate who spilled coffee on his shirt. None of them took the time to calm down the girl who was having a panic attack." She gestured toward her feet. "These bare feet carried me through that lobby and up to this floor, where I helped 3 different people while everyone else was worried about looking perfect. I'd rather be barefoot and kind than well-dressed and cold." The interview ended with Sterling asking Sarah to wait outside. For the next hour, she sat in that waiting room, still barefoot, still holding her broken shoes, while the remaining candidates finished their interviews. Finally, all 34 candidates were called back into the conference room. Sterling stood at the front of the room, his expression unreadable. "We've made our decision," he announced. This was one of the most challenging hiring processes we've ever conducted. We had 34 exceptional candidates, and normally, it would be nearly impossible to choose. He paused, scanning the room. But sometimes, someone comes along who reminds you what you're really looking for. Someone who shows you that qualifications on paper don't tell the whole story. Someone who demonstrates that character isn't about what you wear, but about who you are when things don't go according to plan. Sarah felt her heart pounding. She looked around the room at the other 33 candidates, all still perfectly dressed, all still wearing their expensive shoes. "Sarah Mitchell," Sterling said, looking directly at her. "Would you like to join our team?" The room erupted in whispers and shocked expressions. Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes as she stood up. "Yes, sir. I would be honored." As the other candidates filed out, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others looking angry, Sterling approached Sarah. "You know," he said quietly, "I've been conducting interviews for 25 years. I've seen candidates try every trick in the book to stand out. But I've never seen someone turn what could have been their biggest weakness into their greatest strength." He handed her a business card. "Report to HR tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And Sarah? You can wear shoes if you want to." Sarah laughed through her tears. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling. I promise you won't regret this decision." That day, Sarah learned something that changed her life forever. Success isn't about being perfect. It's about being authentic. It's about showing up even when things go wrong. It's about turning your greatest challenges into your greatest strengths. 6 months later, Sarah was promoted to senior analyst. A year later, she was leading her own team. And every morning when she puts on her shoes, she remembers the day she walked barefoot into her future and found out that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the biggest rewards. The broken shoes? She kept them. They sit on her desk as a reminder that obstacles are just opportunities in disguise. And that sometimes, the thing that makes you different is exactly the thing that makes you irreplaceable.